Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. On the show this Wednesday night, the Congress has told the Election Commission it wants a ban on opinion polls after a sting by a news channel claims to show how these polls can be manipulated at the behest of political parties. The question is banning polls the answer, or should the process be made more transparent? Do opinion polls really influence voters, and would a ban amount to curtailing of freedom of expression? Those are some of the questions that we'll explore in the debate in just a few minutes. But first, the big story at this hour: India's Navy Chief Admiral D.K. Joshi has resigned in the last hour. In a press release, the government has said that Admiral Joshi has quit, taking moral responsibility for the accidents and incidents that have taken place in the last few months. His resignation has been accepted by the government. This morning, the Navy was hit by the news of another accident as the smoke engulfed the Russian-made submarine, the INS Sindhuratna, off the Mumbai coast. It caused serious illness to 7 sailors and has left 2 officers missing. An upset Defence Ministry then sought a detailed report from the Navy on the mishap, which has been the 10th accident involving an Indian Navy warship and the 3rd submarine mishap in the last 7 months after the sinking of the INS Sindhurakshak in August, in which 18 sailors on board were killed. My colleague Nitin Gokhale now joins us with that important story at this hour. Nitin, quite unexpected, the Navy Chief having to resign over this. What are you hearing about what led to this?
Well, I am not getting too many details of why he resigned, but I must say that this is in the highest traditions of military leadership that Admiral Joshi has said that the buck stops with me. I have sacked commanders and captains for errors of judgment and errors which have happened over the past 10 months. And now that it seems that the accidents are not stopping, the mishaps are not going on, I am resigning, taking moral responsibility. The naval community that I have managed to speak to in the last half an hour or so, across various ranks, starting from the junior most to very senior officers, is shocked. Nobody expected the naval chief to resign. He had 1 more year plus to go in office. He would have retired next year in 2015, July. But he's quit. He's taken moral responsibility. The question that the naval community now is asking is only the Navy responsible, or the Navy chief responsible for the state of equipment and platforms, aging submarine, aging ships that the Navy has, or should the Defence Minister and the Defence Ministry officials who do not play up and do not meet the demands as the Navy and the other armed forces ask for, should also take responsibility, and should they also have similar action being taken? That is the question that the naval community is now asking vociferously in private so far. But let me tell you, there's a lot of resentment and a lot of unhappiness over what has happened, and the way Admiral Joshi has resigned is being hailed as the highest traditions of the military, that the military chief has taken responsibility and has quit.
Well, Nitin, just to touch on a point that you raised yourself about the fact that there have been a spate of accidents that the Navy has seen in the last several months, and as you yourself said, there are many who are questioning why this is happening, and they're laying the blame at the doorstep perhaps of the Defence Minister himself. There's a lot that Mr. Antony also has to answer for.
Indeed. In fact, if you see in the last 7 or 8 years, Mr. Antony has cancelled and scuttled so many deals on frivolous charges, sometimes serious charges. And in fact, the folklore in the Defence Ministry is that he doesn't want to sign the files as long as possible, because he wants to remain a spotless minister who has a spotless reputation. And now I think the chickens are coming home to roost in a way that is happening, because the Navy has been asking for submarines from 1999, and the accretion or the acquisition of submarines has not happened. This submarine, for instance, which met the accident this morning, is a 25-year-old submarine which had undergone a refit, just finished it in December 2013. Not that there are no errors on the part of the naval personnel or officers, but in a large navy like India, remember, Indian Navy is the largest navy in Asia Pacific. And in a large navy, operational, tactical training, deployments do see accidents, and a lot of people go through the trauma of meeting these accidents. But the buck must stop not with just the Navy chief, but higher up. That's the point that is being raised in the armed forces. Nidhi?
Well, clearly the last word has not been said on this dramatic development today. Nitin, thanks very much for that update. Expect more fireworks on this big story to play out over the course of the next few days as well. Well, we'll move on to our big focus tonight. The Congress party today gave a letter to the Election Commission saying that it wants a ban on opinion polls, while the BJP has said that the Congress simply wants to muzzle dissent because it's shown losing in most of these polls. A sting aired by a television channel last night claims to show how 11 leading poll companies were willing to manipulate data at the behest of political parties, and it's reignited the debate on the accuracy of such polls and whether they can be trusted. Tanima Biswas reports.
Suppose there is any portal or any news media or any newspaper which is commissioning it, within the margin of errors you can play a little bit of that.
This sting by the News Express TV channel claims that 11 leading opinion poll agencies have admitted that their results can be manipulated at the instance of political parties. That, for a price, the number of seats for a particular party could be increased. The Congress, which has strongly opposed polls, has seized on the story and told the Election Commission today that it wants a ban.
जितने भी ओपिनियन पोल्स हैं, इनको इलेक्शन के खत्म होने के बाद, पोलिंग के खत्म होने के 48 घंटे तक के इन ओपिनियन पोल्स को क्या बैन कर सकते हैं और इनको बैन होना चाहिए, ये हमने इलेक्शन कमीशन को कहा है.
But the BJP has hit back, saying the Congress only wants a ban because most opinion polls show them losing and losing badly.
कांग्रेस चाहती है कि इस देश के लोगों की जबान पर ताला लगा दिया जाए, अघोषित इमरजेंसी लगा दिया जाए, लोगों को देश में राय व्यक्त करने का अधिकार छीन लिया जाए. किसने क्या कहा है उसको बारीकी से देखना होगा.
The Aam Aadmi Party has not called for a ban and instead asked the Election Commission to regulate opinion polls. Yogendra Yadav of AAP, who is also a well-known psephologist, says his polls are up for scrutiny on the website.
My personal experience, no. As I said, I've had the pleasure of working with some outstanding editors. I did hear rumors, and my natural tendency is not to believe rumors, especially if they are about the rivals and competitors, because that's just not fair. हमने अपना raw data public में रख दिया था. उससे फालतू दुनिया में कोई कुछ कर नहीं सकता.
Among the agencies shown in the sting is Sea Voter. The India Today group has suspended its partnership with them, though the agency has strongly denied that any manipulation took place.
The Election Commission had written into the Law Ministry sometime back asking for restrictions on opinion polls ahead of the elections. Now that a private TV channel has shown a sting operation exposing opinion polls, the EC says it will certainly look into the matter, but that the onus lies with the government to take action. With Bureau Inputs, this is Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
So can opinion polls be trusted? Should they be banned or should they be regulated? Those are the big questions we're asking tonight. Joining us this evening, Piyush Goyal, National Treasurer and Rajya Sabha MP from the BJP. Prashant Bhushan, spokesperson for the Aam Aadmi Party. From the Congress Party, Sanjay Jha, the national spokesperson of the Congress, joins us from Mumbai. Kumar Ketkar joins us this evening also from Mumbai. Dorab Supariwala, editorial advisor to NDTV, is also with us tonight to dispassionately look at just how opinion polls are done. My first question, though, is to Piyush Goyal. Mr. Goyal, you know, opinion polls are important as far as the media is concerned, and clearly the BJP is one of the few parties that has actually stood up and said it doesn't believe that they should be banned. However, with this sting operation, there are a lot of doubts about the credibility of polls that has been raised. Doesn't that concern the BJP as well, that there needs to be some more credibility and transparency introduced in the process? Because while the contents of that sting can't be verified by us, it has certainly raised important questions on the credibility of these polls. Mr. Goyal.
Very certainly, Nidhi. One will have to investigate, and I'm sure the correct authorities will be looking into it. But as far as the BJP is concerned, I believe the responsibility is on the news channels. It's on the newspapers. It's on the media who uses these polls. We, for example, have nothing to do with which pollsters the media decides or chooses to report. Very often all of you channels take a summary of 4 or 5 polls. We read news reports of, oh, we were accurate, we have been proven right. Some say we are 100% right, 50% right, whatever. As far as we are concerned, we never indulge in any of these opinion polls. For us, we do carry out surveys, for example, to know what should be the messaging strategy of the party. or what should be the medium in which the messaging strategy of the party can go to the people. But I don't think it's important for us to know whether we are getting so many seats or less or more. It really is not our concern. I think the media will have to decide, probably even self-regulate yourself, what you will do to ensure the credibility of data, the credibility of process, the credibility of the companies carrying them out. And I'm sure there must be a lot of good companies. We clearly are against any blanket ban on opinion polls. I believe it's important to know the methodology, the number of respondents, the way the whole opinion poll was conducted. I mean, the other day, there was a whole one-page advertisement on certain polls, which we later found was based on 2,000 respondents.
But you know, at the
same
time,
Mr.
Goyal, the fact is that most of these polls show the BJP and the NDA in the lead. And therefore, do you speak today from that position that you're comfortable in knowing that those opinion polls are in your favor? If the shoe was on the other foot, would you be saying something else?
No, not at all. If you will see, we have consistently held that stand. In fact, even many years ago when this thing came up, there was originally a thinking that maybe it may be a good idea for some days. But then when we studied the international position, we saw that in France there was a ban. Subsequently, the court struck it down and they said that no, there should not be a ban, people should be allowed. So even a 7-day blackout period was then reduced to only 1 day. That's when I think we took a conclusive call that irrespective, there are so many polls which show us is performing very badly. But that's part of the life. I mean, after all, polls can only reflect what the reality is on the ground if done credibly. But if, well, there is some sort of a vested interest behind that poll, then obviously the news channels and media will have to answer for it.
Sanjay Jha,
we cannot be responsible for what you are saying.
Sanjay Jha, the Congress's problem though seems to be that because you are not seen to be doing well in these opinion polls, you are now calling out for an outright ban. At the end of the day, many would say what is needed is regulation, as the Aam Aadmi Party has said today, perhaps more transparency in the process. But why an outright ban? Because it doesn't suit you.
Nidhi, first let me clarify that it's got nothing to do with what the opinion polls seem to be forecasting. We are pretty conditioned to that as a party. In 2004, we were trailing behind. In 2009, we were trailing behind. We saw what the end outcome was. By that logic, I should be treating this as an extremely a sign of great auspiciousness that we are trailing at this point of time. So I don't think that's the case really. In fact, let me remind Piyush Goyal that when he was in government in 2004 under NDA, they actually pushed for a ban on opinion polls once the elections were notified. So I think, you know, obviously when you become an opposition, your voice might change. But the fact of the matter is, I think today, Nidhi, you've got to acknowledge it, that based on the extremely unscrupulous things that we heard yesterday on the News Express television, we stand vindicated in terms of not appearing on any discussion based with not just the C Voter channel, but C Voter opinion poll, but some others as well. There is a handful. In fact, there are a dozen, small and big opinion poll agencies. I think it's a mushrooming of psephologists in the country. So you can see it's a new business model at the moment, which I think has been caught literally in a very, very embarrassing tight spot. Let the investigations unfold. Now, one thing which I want to make a very clear assertion on behalf of my party. We are not for banning opinion polls per se. The point that we have always made, Nidhi, and this is consistent, is that, if opinion polls are meant to be scientific, they have to have an element of precision. Give 3% margin error. That's for an opinion poll agency to decide. But end of day, you have to have high disclosure. I think Piyush mentioned some very valid points. But add to that things like the representative sample, the kind of questions asked.
Why call for a ban? Why call for a complete ban? Why not then say let's have regulation, let's have more transparency, let everybody declare their sample sizes, the process, what are the questions asked, be more fair on that front. Why call for a ban?
Absolutely, but the point that you got to understand, Nidhi, is we are talking about we don't decide that. The Election Commission has to take a call. So we need to be very, very clear
here. The Election Commission has thrown the ball back in the government's court last year, saying that it's in favor of a ban on polls and it's up to the Law Ministry to decide. I don't understand why Mr. Markan went to the Election Commission today. You should ask Mr. Kapil Sibal what he's doing with the EC's letter.
No, 1 minute, Nidhi. The Election Commission asked all political parties to submit their opinion in writing to them. In fact, if I remember correctly, it was the BJP that never reverted to them in writing, perhaps may have done it later. We did. And the majority of the political parties, in fact, if not all, said they wanted a ban on opinion polls subject to disclosure standards. So I want to make this qualification on your program that if tomorrow the Election Commission comes up with a norm, which is like something like what you have as a British poll council, for example, where there is a regulatory mechanism, I don't think any party, including ours, will have a problem. But you can't have a situation where the polling agency and the broadcast channel are going to town on their predictions.
I'm just going to read out to you the letter that the Election Commission wrote to the Law Minister saying that the Commission wants an amendment to regulate the conduct of opinion polls. The proposal was originally made in April 2004 and it's asked the Law Ministry to take a call on the issue. So if the Congress feels so strongly about this, I'm just asking why the government hasn't acted on that. Why are you going back to the EC when the EC has thrown the ball back in the Law Ministry's court?
Because let me tell you, I think this is for the Election Commission to take a call on. You know, it's just like how, you know, when there have been allegations of paid media, if you look at this particular issue of, you know, people actually, you know, having perhaps paid money to manipulate the poll. I think these are the questions that the Election Commission can find out. The government, if it intervenes, it will send a very wrong signal, and political parties, anybody will be up in arms saying there is an intervention. So this has to be done by an independent body. The Election Commission needs to take a call. We will support whatever decision the Election Commission makes. But the truth is, the Election Commission is in the best position to find out who is funding them. Now, there are very, very critical questions that need to be asked in the name of honesty, transparency, and the fact that end of day, you know, it is a public opinion that is being influenced.
Okay, I just want to come to
there's a bandwagon effect does happen.
Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, the former Chief Election Commissioner, who's joining us tonight outdoors from a rainy location here in Delhi. So I don't want to keep him for too long. But Mr. Qureshi, you have actually been tweeting very strongly against opinion polls over the last 48 hours. You've said that the manipulation of polls is worse and more dangerous than a bank robbery, and that criminal cases, of course, should be registered against the guilty. Why, sir, do you believe that a ban is important? Do you believe that the Indian electorate is so easily swayed by a survey or an opinion poll?
Nidhi, let me start from the beginning, because that background is necessary in the light of the discussion which I heard. Since 1997, political parties have been representing to us about this malpractice. And in 1998, the Election Commission, using Article 324, preliminary power, came out with guidelines. They were challenged. The Supreme Court said that they did not illegalize those guidelines. They said, how will you enforce them? There should be a law. So we withdrew those guidelines and we said we'll come up with a law. It took some time, because then we had another meeting, all-party meeting, I think it was 2008. Again, all parties unanimously, they were demanding this ban. Then we wrote to the government that since you yourself are demanding ban, why don't you pass it in Parliament, because this involves Amendment to Representation of People Act. So we can't do it ourselves. So you're calling it throwing the ball back in the court. The ball shouldn't have been in our house in any case. It had to be handled in the Parliament. But to our surprise, although we had demanded that both opinion poll and exit poll should be banned, because all political parties were suggesting this and we had good reason to support them, when it came to Parliament, they banned the exit polls but allowed the opinion polls. And shortly thereafter, they came back to us again complaining. He said, look, we sent it to you on your demand, and why didn't you complete the job? Now, and as you said rightly, in 2013, then we did a third consultation. This time we wrote to all those political parties, and 14 out of 15 said that there should be a ban. The 15, for some whatever reason, they opposed it, although earlier they also had been demanding the ban. Now, this is where the things stand at the moment. And why we think that they tinker with the election? Because any undue influence with the election process, which by misleading people, disinforming people, you know, the bandwagon effect does have an impact. If one voter is cheated into believing a particular candidate or a party is winning and let me also vote, we have heard in TV debates many times, it doesn't make a significant difference. I ask a question, what is a significant difference? Because we have a case right now in our cabinet, we have a minister, Mr. C.P. Joshi. He had lost by 1 vote. He could have been Chief Minister of Rajasthan then. If one vote makes a difference, and as a result of a bogus deceiving poll, if one voter is swayed by this way, this is interference with free and fair poll.
But Mr.
That's
Qureshi,
why we have been demanding a ban.
Otherwise been no study actually, as far as I know, there's never been any scientific study that has proved that opinion polls actually sway voters one way or the other. I mean, Soli Sarabji has argued in the past that it goes against the freedom of expression in the constitution, that you underrate India's citizens and underestimate the fact that they can use their own brains at the end of the day, even while processing what different polls are saying, much like, as he put it, the different views that they get from different newspapers. Ultimately, they form their own opinion. So there really doesn't seem to be, sir, yes, any scientific proof that they actually, sway voters in a particular direction.
There are three things. One is whether it's the freedom of expression under Article 19. Well, surely we have freedom of expression, but we in the same Article 19, there is provision for reasonable restrictions. And there are all kinds of reasonable restrictions already in place, even under the Representation of People Act. For instance, in 48 hours of the poll, you cannot do publicity. Now, therefore, Article 19 is not absolute. Secondly, there is no freedom of cheating. There is no freedom of deceiving people. And what we are talking about is the deceit here. Whereas free and fair election is our mandate. That is our constitutional obligation. And there is no question of any reasonable or unreasonable restriction. Free and fair has to be absolute.
Okay, before I come to Prashant Bhushan, then, sir, Piyush Goyal wanted to rebut what you had to say.
Nidhi, last point, whether there is scientific evidence. We have all heard of Coca-Cola, but they spend 1 billion on publicity. Why? Only to keep in public memory, to change the buying habits. To say that we require a proof. They spend crores. What for? Political parties bribe them to give favorable proof. What for? Not for their entertainment, only to sway the vote in their favor. And one vote is going to make a difference, as I told you.